Oh, yeah, it's the Matt Kwasiborski show calling you live and direct from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I did come up here for the World Series, and what an epic night it is going to be here in Philadelphia as we have the final Phillies home game in a World Series tied 2-2 with the Houston Astros. And the two games in Philadelphia have been contrasts of each other, with the Phillies bombing the Houston Astros 7-0, and the Astros responding by hitting the Phillies last night 5-0. Before we get started here on the Matt Kwasiborski show, just want to thank Al Gore for inventing the internet. Want to thank Spreaker Studios for hosting my podcast, and thanks to all the loyal listeners out there that are tuning in or downloading at least. And decided to come back to my old haunt, the place where I grew up in Philadelphia. It is the neighborhood called Fishtown. If you're unfamiliar with Fishtown, it is a typical blue collar neighborhood, I would say, in East Philadelphia. So we're above Center City. We're above the South Philly, but we are along the river, and we're below the northeast part of it. So I would say we are in East Philly if you could really give a geographic location. Fishtown is a neighborhood rich in history. It is where Penn Treaty signed his Penn Treaty, the peace deal with the Native Americans over there, Shaxamaxon tribe that was around at that time, and along with another tribe, can't recall right now, who we signed the peace deal with. And I think it's really cool to be in this part. It has then transformed into a highly Polish, German, and Irish immigrant neighborhood. Back when I was growing up, we were pretty much second or third generations, and sometimes even first generation Americans that were growing up here, and has since also reformed one of the hottest neighborhoods in all of the U.S. with all of the real estate development, the business, the service industry is really taking off. Has taken off, isn't really? It has taken off to unprecedented levels. They often call it the sixth borough of New York because of the development coming from New York and investors here. But it's also really great to be back. You grow up watching baseball, Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia teams that I started watching around 1984 were just piss poor up until 93. We had that sort of crazy year in 93, which I kind of consider the blip on the radar, because then they went back into being pretty much a bad baseball team all the way till around 2004 and 5. You started seeing that this team could be great, and it was, as we won the 2008 World Series, which was approximately 14 years ago. And here we are again, which is another, we'll see if this is a blip on the radar kind of thing like 93, but we don't care about that. This is going to be Game 5 tonight, the last game, and we know that the series is tied 2-2. We are going to go back to Houston for Game 6 and impossible Game 7. And it's been just, the Phillies, I was looking at the stats today, our number 1 and number 2 pitchers are just getting lit up, and that's not a good thing. But we've gotten great pitching by everyone else. The Astros have only scored in 5 of the 36 innings, but they've been big innings. They were shut down by Ranger Suarez, and our bullpen has not given up a run yet this postseason or in the World Series. That was at least charged to them. So, and as you can hear, there's drilling outside, and I was hoping to have my studio here and didn't think I'd have to deal with this at 6:20 on a Thursday night, but alas, here we are. So, heading into tonight, you have Justin Verlander versus Noah Syndergaard, which the Phillies are chalking up as a bullpen game. I think it's going to be imperative that the Phillies get out in front in this game pretty quickly. And it's crazy to think that Justin Verlander, who is a Hall of Fame pitcher, he's coming back from Tommy John, will probably win the AL Cy Young Award this year. Tommy John surgery, which knocks you out a year. He's about 38 years old. He has a Hall of Fame career, except when it comes to the World Series. He's got the worst stats of anyone that made 8 starts, at least, in the World Series, dating back to his days with Detroit and obviously with the Houston Astros. And kind of just, crazy the fact that he hasn't pitched very well. Congrats on the beautiful wife, Kate Upton, by the way. She was in the stands last night. And we really need the Phillies to jump on him early, to stay aggressive against them. And because, Houston's coming out. They've also been very aggressive against their starting pitching. Ranger Suarez kind of neutralized them in Game 3. And then last night in Game 4, the the Astros just jumped over. Aaron Nola pitched well for 3 2/3 of an inning, and then you could see going into the at the end of the 4th inning. So maybe end of the 4th inning, he started getting rocked around a little bit. Certain balls were getting hit hard. He wasn't placing his pitches. That could be fatigue. He's never pitched this late into a season on this amount of time. And then in inning 5, the Astros scored all 5 runs of the game right there, due to some really timely hitting by the Houston Astros. And, they bounced back, and how are the Phillies going to bounce back tonight after getting no hit? And you have to give a lot of credit to that Houston Astros pitching staff, especially the starter Christian Vasquez. His story is kind of amazing. Started out as a catcher, and he was just, dominated the Phillies, absolutely, but he didn't overpower them. He just has this electric stuff where a lot of pop-ups and strikeouts is all I saw, or like pop-up foul balls of the first baseman, pop-ups to the shortstop, lazy fly balls or a strikeout. And credit to him and credit to the bullpen who came in, and the Phillies had gotten to that bullpen in Game 1, obviously, when they came back being down 5-0 and won 6-5 in that game. But the Phillies bullpen has been just a tick better. Every time our starters have gotten out of the game, either with the lead or without the lead, they've shut the Houston Astros down. I think it is weird for the Astros to only have scored in 5 of the 36 innings, like I said, but it's, they've scored a lot of runs in those games. And the amount of runs scored right now for both teams is at 15, and that's kind of crazy as well when they're just dead even at 2 games to each. And you go into this game tonight, and like I said, the imperative is to jump on the Verlander. But if the Phillies lose tonight, I trust that Zach Wheeler on rest will come out and be able to, fix whatever happened in Houston. In Game 2, he got hit around pretty well, but then again, once he was out, the bullpen shut them down. We just weren't able to hit Valdez. And then I like Ranger Suarez in Game 7. So if you're looking at the Astros, they don't want to go to a Game 7. They don't want to pitch McCullers again. McCullers got lit up by the Phillies the other night. I mean, that was just, Bryce Harper hits his first ever pitch he sees as in the World Series for a 2-run home run in the first inning, which was an amazing shot that he hit. And then we just kept hitting homers after homers. Apparently, McCullers was tipping his pitches. That's some of the things that I see going around the internet. But, who knows what it was. Who knows why he was doing so bad. I just think he doesn't throw fastballs. And, last night you saw Vasquez with a similar arsenal in terms of some numbers of pitches, but he was throwing either a four-seam fastball or he was throwing his slider for effectiveness, and it was very, very effective. I do think the Phillies will make this game competitive, and like I said, if they're able to jump on Verlander and do what they did to him in Game 1, which was obviously Houston jumped on Nola pretty early, but we got to Verlander, and I have all the faith in the world with the bullpen for the Phillies. There's no reason for them not to have faith. Alvarado came in last night and he hit the first batter he hit and gave up the first run, and gave up a 2-run double. However, Alvarado has been sort of like the weaker part of this bullpen coming in. That's tough to say, but he just doesn't seem like he's locating his pitches. Anyway, I am confident in the bullpen there. You don't want to see the Houston bullpen as much. But, we will see moving forward. Like I said, they will definitely go to a Game 6 on Saturday night in Houston, 8:03 start time, which will be also, we'll see what happens. Let's get through tonight. If Syndergaard can give the Phillies at least 4 innings, which is 2 times roughly around the Houston Astros lineup, and we have a couple runs on the board, I'm okay with that. Rob Thompson has been managing the bullpen extremely, extremely well this year, so in this playoffs at least. So I do have faith that he will push all the right buttons. And moving forward, I think tonight will be a high-scoring game. I'm thinking something like 7-6, 8-7. I do think it will be a high-scoring game. There's no way. As much as Houston Astros bounced back from Game 3 debacle being shut out 7-0, both the hitters and the pitchers bounced back last night. I expect the Phillies to do as well. The Phillies have shown a penchant for being able to bounce back after tough losses or embarrassing losses this season. And Rob Thompson reminded them that, we were no hit by the Mets in April in a bullpen game. It wasn't just one pitcher, and we won the next day. And I expect the Phillies bats to be a little bit more, like I said, aggressive. They've seen Verlander. The Astros haven't seen Syndergaard yet, so I think that is going to be an exciting matchup for both teams tonight. So just going to do this quick podcast here because they're drilling the streets at 6:30 at night. It's really annoying. The other thing is the Philadelphia Eagles, the 7-0 Philadelphia Eagles, are in Houston tonight, ironically, to take on the woebegone Houston Texans. They are 14-point favorites on the road, which is a very high amount. It shows the amount of confidence that the Las Vegas bettors have in the Eagles. And Houston's also without probably their best offensive weapon in Brandon Cooks, who has some minor injuries, but is not very happy with his role in Houston, and I think he was expected to be traded. The problem is I think Houston wanted him to be traded, but Cooks has an $18 million guaranteed salary this next year, and no team was willing to take that on. And even if they were able to swing a trade for him, Cooks would probably be let go after this season. Yeah, I expect the Eagles to win comfortably in this game tonight. I think they are, they're just clicking on all cylinders. You hope they're not peaking this part of the season. I don't think so. They destroyed a bad Pittsburgh team last week in Lincoln Financial Field after the bye week, 35-13, and that game was 7-7 at one point. And credit both the offense and the defense. What a monster game AJ Brown had. Jalen Hurts had a big game. They actually the Eagles pulled all their starters with 9.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter because it was more rest to get ready for Thursday night on the road. I mean, that's a very, very quick turnaround. Let's get these guys off the field, avoid injuries, and get everyone clicking on high cylinders for tonight. So I do expect the Eagles to come out, with a pretty easy victory. Are they going to cover the spread? I don't know, but I didn't think they were going to cover 10.5 last week, and they won by 22 points. So, who knows if they will be able to do that. I think it'll be up to the defense. I think the defense can shut Houston down. I think Houston does come out with a little bit of fire in their belly. They're on national TV on Thursday night in front of their home crowd. They have the Astros playing, so they could feed off of that energy a little bit. But, I think the Eagles win this game comfortably. And a great story today on Good Morning Football, which is pretty much the morning show that I have on in the background while I'm working. And they did a great little 5-minute expose on Jalen Hurts going back to Houston, back to Reliance Stadium. And interesting story, like if you don't know Jalen Hurts' background, his dad was his coach in high school, and his high school never made the state championships to play in Reliance Stadium, but he also would be in the stands for those games. And I think either his mother worked for the Houston Texans, so he was always in that stadium. He was supporting Houston Astros gear earlier this season, heading into the playoffs before the World Series. Obviously, that's a no-no if you wear the Houston Astros gear right now there, Jalen. But I think he's going to be on a mission to show in front of his home crowd. 150 people are being reported to be in attendance. And I think he wants to put on a great show for them. And, again, he's one of the leading candidates for the MVP race in the NFL right now. He's been a godsend to this team in a lot of ways in this franchise. And I think he's playing himself into a long-term franchise contract down the line, mainly because he's stabilized a franchise that was teetering with the whole Carson Wentz mess and the Doug Peterson firing and the hiring of a very, very inexperienced NFL coach in Nick Sirianni. And but they're all pushing the right cylinders. The couple areas to look for: the run defense has to get strengthened up, especially as the weather turns colder. Whenever that will happen, it's 75. It's about 70 degrees or 22 degrees right now Celsius, 70 Fahrenheit, and it's November 3rd at night, and the sun is down. So, and it's predicted to be in the 80s through Monday, to be up to almost 80 by Monday, with a cold front coming. But the games will eventually turn colder here, and you got to shore up that run defense a little bit more. Special teams in terms of the return games have been a bit be desired, especially. I don't mind that, I want to have smart returners, not bringing it out of the end zone when they know they can't get to the 25. And if you're in the punt team, just make sure you don't muff the ball if you're going to fair catch it, and at least run with it. But our kickoff coverage and punt coverage has not been all that great. And again, as the games get a little closer and a little tighter in the standings, if you will, those little things can shift momentum. We saw that a little bit in the Dallas game. They got a big kickoff right before half, that could have spurned a little bit of momentum change in the favor of the Cowboys. So that is something to look at as well. Going around the league, you see a lot of things shifting. It looks the NFC East, is back, is probably the best division from top to bottom in front of talent-wise, with the Giants and the Cowboys on the Eagles' heels, and the Commanders kind of stabilizing after Carson Wentz got hurt. They have a huge game against Minnesota, which will determine where they fit in the NFL playoff picture, because they're very much alive. And as you go there, you could have all 4 teams from the NFC East in the playoffs, which is kind of crazy. That most likely won't happen. What I think we'll have unless the Giants fall off the face of the earth. I think Eagles, Cowboys, Giants get in. You're looking at the other divisions. The Atlanta Falcons are leading the South over the Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just look absolutely lost. Tom Brady, while he's dealing with personal issues of the divorce from Giselle, he also has 5 new offensive linemen this year, and that's clearly been the picture with them. They're not able to keep Tom Brady on his. The defenses are able to knock Tom Brady off his spots. And the success with Brady, because he's not a mobile quarterback. He'll sneak a run in every here and there. But he was always good about being able to slide up, when he felt the pressure. And he's not even in time to slide up. And when he does, or if he's able to slide up, the rush is in his face, and that's really affecting them. The Saints are also at 3-5 there. They came off of, I think, an impressive shutout win of the Raiders, who are extremely horrible this year, which is a surprise to me as well. 24-0. It's a great win for the Saints, who were blown out by the Cardinals the week before. So maybe they've righted the ship a little bit. As an Eagles fan, you don't want that because we have their number 1 draft pick, due to the magic of Howie Rosen. And then going up to the AFC West, you have the front-running Seattle Seahawks. So that's another division that could have 3 teams in the playoffs. It could be the Rams, the 49ers, and maybe if the Seahawks hold on. I don't have faith in the Cardinals, really, but they could also sneak in there. The 49ers will get it together. They've made a great trade, getting Christian McCaffrey. And once you get Deebo Samuel back there, and you get that running game, passing game, the Jimmy G, dinks and dunks. You also have Kittle there. They're going to be tough, because I really like this 49ers defense out there. If you go into LA Rams, just don't look like they have it. Stafford was hurt going into training camp in the preseason or in the first game, and it's with tendonitis, and he just doesn't look like he has it. He also was lost. Losing OBJ and Robert Woods has really affected him. I don't think the other receivers have stepped up, especially Allen Robinson III. The guy was their main wide receiver acquisition in the offseason. And they're having some issues in the running game and the offensive line, too. Like the Rams' offensive line is taking some big hits and some losses and injuries there. So that's kind of tough. Both LA teams are suffering on the offensive line. I think that's going to be the detriment to those teams. And it just goes to appreciate, as a Philadelphia Eagles fan, the Eagles' offensive line, which you have probably a Hall of Famer in Kelsey. You have a great, this all-time great in Lane Johnson, and just really surrounded by other guys that have just seemed to turn through a machine ever since Jeff Stoutland has been the coach here moving forward. In the NFC North, you have the Vikings at 7-1, with their only loss being to the Philadelphia Eagles, which they were severely outplayed. And that is, so a lot of people are on the Vikings bandwagon because they're saying the Eagles haven't played anybody, which is kind of bullcrap. But anyway, let the Vikings be the Vikings. This is what Kirk Cousins does. He's the best player in October and November. When December comes on in the playoffs, I don't have faith in Kirk Cousins, no matter how talented that team is. They did get a great tight end in TJ Hawkinson from the Detroit Lions, who look like they're about to go through another franchise transition. The rest of that division, though, Chicago, Green Bay, and Detroit, they all have major glaring weaknesses. Detroit's 1-6. They're pretty much headed to another number 1 overall draft pick, unfortunately for them. The Bears are, they're competitive 1 week and, destroy New England in prime time. Then they get destroyed by the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it's just like, who are the Bears? And Green Bay, they're struggling. A lot of injuries. Aaron Rodgers is playing. Looks like he's playing with 1 foot out the door. And he doesn't want to wait around to get these receivers into sync the way he plays. So that's really going to be interesting to see if Green Bay actually makes the playoffs this year, which could be Aaron Rodgers' last year in Green Bay. And, I look for him to maybe be on San Francisco this time next year. if Trey Lance doesn't come back, because I'm looking at Jimmy G and his arm is hurting. And things like that. So that's the way I'm looking at the NFC picture. So I'm looking at the Eagles. Obviously, they're going to be 8-0 after tonight. And, you just want to stay healthy coming out of this game tonight. That's about it. And just take care of business, which they've done. Like I said, Jalen Hurts has really stabilized this franchise and keeps that offense calm, cool, and collected. Nothing seems to rattle them. He's got stud wide receivers in Smith and A.J. Brown. Great tight end in Dallas Goedert, and a very strong running game. And they were able to pick up Robert Quinn from the Chicago Bears, who's pretty much a depth guy along the defensive line in the Eagles. But he will, kind of like a Chris Long. I think they're going to utilize him a lot like they did Chris Long when the Eagles were winning the Super Bowl back in 2017, that season. And that's what I kind of see the way the Robert Quinn could be used. But interesting trades around the NFL. Chase Claypool, I think, was the one that surprised me. The promising young wide receiver from Pittsburgh gets traded all the way over to the Bears, and apparently the Packers also wanted him. But I think the idea is why Pittsburgh, they figured that Chicago's second-round draft pick will be higher than Green Bay's. I don't know. We'll see what that is. I think that was one of the more surprising ones. Bradley Chubb, the all-star yet oft-injured linebacker from Denver, goes to Miami for a couple of picks, as well as Chase Edmonds, the running back, which I thought was an interesting trade for both franchises. Chubb immediately signed I think a 5-year, $110 million extension. Chase Edmonds was one of their prize free agent signings in there in Miami. And I'm sure there's a lot of cap reasoning why they gave up on Edmonds, but I'm surprised they chose Edmonds over Mostert with that. Maybe I don't know if Edmonds has been hurt or whatever. Maybe he's just not fitting in the locker room. Not really sure. But the Dolphins, they're going for it. They're following the model of the Los Angeles Rams, going forward with Tua Tagovailoa having a fantastic year, led by Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, probably the fastest wide receiver duo maybe in NFL history. In that direction, but they're playing in a very tough division with the Buffalo Bills. They picked up the running back Hines from Indianapolis, the Colts, for a couple of picks, and Zach Moss, who is a running back, went over to Indianapolis. Great trade for them. I think it gives them sort of that, in Buffalo, that running back that can hit the hole and just go, like that quick scat back. And run is very quick. I think the one thing about the Buffalo running backs, they have some strong, good ground it and pound it running backs, but none of that quick hitters. So I think this will bring a lot of even more versatility to the Buffalo Bills offense there. We all know about their defense. Jets have struggled last week. The Patriots, they're up and down with the way they're going with things, and Miami's right there. So Miami and Buffalo pretty much are the class of the AFC East, and pretty much the AFC outside of the Kansas City Chiefs. The Baltimore Ravens traded for a linebacker who did they pick up there? Sorry about that. They went out and made a nice trade to kind of strengthen their defense. Their defense is what they're known for, but they have not been very good in the last couple of years. I'd say they've been more on the mediocre side, even though it is the Buffalo Bills. Oh, they picked up the other guy from Chicago, Raekwon Smith, who was holding out. Who held out, played, but then got his wish to see how his contract. He's sort of like in the mold of Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. He'll make a huge difference there, but will be commanding a big contract in the offseason. The Bengals, they're without Jamar Chase, and they looked awful against the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns, man, if they can, look like they're getting some rhythm in that team, and they're playing a lot of close games, much like the Giants are playing close games, but they're not winning them. They got blown out by the Patriots, but everything else has been kind of relatively close for the Browns. The Bengals, I thought, were putting it together, but that's huge. That is a huge loss for them for the next 5 games or so. We'll see if they can steady the ship there, but they may not make the playoffs there. In the South, probably the Colts have given in as they've benched Matt Ryan. They've turned it over to the kid from Texas, Egelbert or whatever, who will be starting. They've traded away Hines. They don't look like they're going anywhere. Jacksonville just isn't there yet. The Dougie P's they're not there yet. They need another couple of good wins, and it looks like the Titans are going to run away with that division as they've really strengthened their defense. And a great matchup with Kansas City going out to the AFC West, who everyone thought was going to be the strongest division. They turn out they're one of the weakest, with the Chargers really suffering a lot of injuries. Denver has looked lost, and the Raiders look lost, and they're both under new regimes out there. So Kansas City will probably be the only team that emerges from the AFC West coming into the playoffs moving forward. I'm going to do a quick short show today because of this noise out here. I don't have my studio microphone, but I still wanted to do a podcast. And we had Harry Kalas doing High Hopes after the 2008 NLCS. We're going to play that one more time, and we're going to take it out of here from Harry Kalas. Let's go.
Once there was a silly old ant, thought he'd move a rubber tree plant. Anyone knows an ant can't move a rubber tree plant, but he has high hopes. He has high hopes. He has high apple pie in the sky. So when you start to feel low, instead of letting go, just remember that ant. Whoops, there goes another rubber tree. Whoops, there goes another rubber tree. Whoops, there goes another rubber tree plant.
That was the late, great Harry Kalas, who, if you grew up in the Phillies in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and 2000s, he was the voice you heard every single night on the TV. Legendary Hall of Fame broadcaster who, ironically, got his start with the Houston Astros, and the Phillies hired him away from there. He would always sing Frank Sinatra's High Hopes after huge Eagles wins. That was from the 2008 playoffs series, and I think it's one of the better ones. You don't see the video, but he's on stage with some old-time Philadelphia Philly legends, the Philly Fanatic, and leading the pep rally. And Game 5 tonight, I think it's going to be a high-scoring yet close game. Both teams are going to be desperate. Whoever gets to the starting pitching, I think the Phillies hold a slight advantage in this game with Syndergaard going. I know that's kind of crazy since he's starting against Justin Verlander, but they haven't seen Syndergaard yet. They're only hoping to get at least Syndergaard through the lineup at least 2 times. And then if the Phillies jump on Verlander, the offense was embarrassed last night. They got no hit in the playoffs. Only the second time, and it's happened in the National League. There was a perfect game in 55 with Don Larson and Roy Halladay's no-hitter against the Cincinnati Reds in 2010. So the Phillies are going to want to bounce back from this, just like Houston bounced back last night to win the game 5-0. But again, I just want to reiterate that the Houston Astros have only scored in 5 out of the 36 innings. The Phillies have held them scoreless in 29 innings during the World Series. The Phillies haven't scored that many more innings, but they've been a slightly more balanced. And I think that's a tribute to the Phillies bullpen. Ironically, our 2 best starters have gotten rocked. That would be Nola twice. He looked better last night, but then just by the 4th inning didn't have it. And Zach Wheeler, who will be pitching Game 6. It's in Houston on Saturday. I'm thinking he will right the ship then, and then we're going to go from there. It's been the Matt Kwasiborski Show. Thank you to all the loyal listeners. Remember to inspire the inspiration. Do not wait for the inspiration to inspire you. Have a great and wonderful night, especially here in the city of Philadelphia.